welcome back to the class, everyone. As of very recently, the Lightspeed bundles in-game have made it significantly easier to get access to Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. That being said, it creates this very interesting problem where we have now a ton of characters to Zeta with very few Zetas available. So the goal of this video today, we're going to talk about not only what is the best order that you should apply all those Zetas, not just to Supreme Leader Kylo Ren, but also to the rest of the characters in the comps that he's commonly used in. But on top of that, I want to talk a lot about the comps that you're going to want to use him in to get the best bang for your buck, whether you're using him on defense or offense, and even some other characters that can help bolster him so that he can take down some truly high tier characters like Jedi Master Kenobi with Cat, as well as Lord Vader with Maul. So let's go ahead and start with what characters should you consider also farming alongside Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. And none of these are things that you have to do. You can buy the Lightspeed bundle, get all the first order characters, unlock your Kylo, and just call it a day and use him in some pretty good ways. But if you're wanting him to be versatile, that really is the key word here, to the point where he can take down several different things, especially in 5v5. These are 5 characters you might want to consider gearing because they all give him a little bit of an extra oomph depending on what he's trying to beat. We'll go into that in depth when we go to all the comps specifically, but these are 5 characters that all kind of offer something to him, and we'll touch on that a little bit later. If you don't want to do that, you're like, Calvin, I've already had like 6 plans this year. I just did Kylo because he was $10 and it was easy. I don't really want to get any of those characters. That's fine. You can actually still get 2 pretty good teams out of first order without dipping into those, and those are the 2 that we're looking at right here. So this above team is a first order team that can pretty easily take out both Rey and Jabba just with how it is functioning in the first order faction. I will say it's going to be pretty garbage banners every single time. More often than not, when you take first order on offense with only first order, it just ends up being Kylo alone in the end. And while that's great, you win, you beat the team, you also got 52 banners in GAC, which depending on your playstyle could be detrimental. It also could be great because you just wanted to kill the Jabba. So this is the option that we're going to go with. Hux, Crew, Lobster all provide very specific important things. First order officer provides like 1 nice thing, and we need a 5th. If you do that team, you can even do this team below. The one thing I will say is you have to be a little bit careful. It's just, even if you have the Omicron on first order TIE Pilot, in GAC it's suspected being countered by Wampa and a few other kind of low tier counters. So depending on where you're at, I realize a lot of different types of or levels of player bought this pack. So if you're at like the 1 million GP mark, it's probably not that big of an issue. If you're starting to get higher into the 3, 4, 5, or Wampa becomes very common, then maybe this just isn't the right choice for you overall. One thing you can do to actually specifically stop Wampa is swap out Crew for first order Stormtrooper, because the 2-turn irresistible stun really just sinks him. So if you're going to do just first order, these are the 2 teams. And if you're wanting to make the team better in territory wars, definitely go ahead and give Phasma the Omicron. And really, Phasma can do a lot of other good things, and you might even discover more comps with Hux. That's really a conversation with your guilds. But if you want to take the team to a slightly better level in GAC, a first order TIE Pilot Omicron is pretty good too. Now, the comps, if you're wanting to use SLKR outside of first order in 5v5, these are going to be your pretty much go-to to be able to kill Lord Vader as well as JMK. The top one is going to require Old Doc as well as Night Sister Zombie, Watt Tambour to be able to apply the tank tech to SLKR to make sure that the healing immunity from Lord Vader doesn't stick. And then I do like to have a second tank here just because if the enemy team has both Thrawn and Maul, you need one of your tanks to hold down the taunt while the other one is fractured. So if Thrawn goes in and he fractures Night Sister Zombie, you need first order Stormtrooper to take the brunt of the hits from Maul so that it doesn't go after someone really important in the very beginning like SLKR, or vice versa. It really doesn't matter. It's nice to have 2 tanks there. It can be done otherwise if the enemy Maul isn't that smart, but this is kind of the ideal way to have it done. The JMK counter, this one is a little bit more tricky to get going. You have to get turn orders in the right places. But the reason why you want Armor and Grand Admiral Thrawn here is because if Armor can go, give herself the 3rd stack pretty much immediately, and Thrawn is just a little bit slower than she is, he can go and swap a turn to her, and because JMK stops turn meter doesn't mean he stops turn swaps, and then Armor can apply 3 stacks of Beskar armor to our good friend SLKR, and by the time that they actually work their way through Old Daka through ignoring taunt, SLKR becomes very hard to kill, and even when they are hitting him, he's going to be countering and hitting stupid hard. He's going to be able to stun. He's going to be able to increase his mastery, and he'll eventually just be able to take down JMK. So again, these are kind of how you use the supporting units that we talked up at the front that you can farm in addition to this farm. And I will say just a little bit of things about Night Sister Zombie. The reason why she works so well with SLKR is because every single time she dies, she comes back with advantage. And every single time she comes back with advantage, she comes back with taunt. That's a combination of SLKR's leadership and her unique ability, and it almost makes her permataunt. In fact, it was one of the reasons why a lot of people like myself have left Zombie a lot weaker even without mods, because the more she dies, the more she gets to keep taunting. Instead of if she's really tanking, you leave her alive, they can apply buff immunity or shock or fracture or something like that to stop her from taunting. Whereas if she just keeps dying, she always keeps coming back with that advantage because it was removed and then reapplied, and then she taunts, and it's honestly a very super annoying mechanic if you understand, or if you don't understand what's going on, and even sometimes when you do understand what's going on. So all that being said, if you are interested in taking Outlord Vader or JMK with these SLKR variants, you can use the second ideal comp down here below, and this is a very good first order team. It doesn't quite reach the heights of the Finzori team that we talked about in the raid comps, but Hux lead with crew on the team, Red Trooper, Kylo Ren, and first order TIE Pilot is pretty deadly, because first order TIE Pilot will give the team 100 extra speed whenever they have advantage, and Hux just makes the whole team start with advantage. And yeah, it's a huge mess to go against. They do a ton of damage, they have ways to gain turn meter, and it's just a really bad time for the enemy team. You can also swap it out for crew lead if you have a Zeta, but we're going to get to that here in a second, why you should or should not do that quickly. So first off, we are going to go to the Zetas, and this is important because, again, most people who were going after this pack probably didn't just have 12 or 10 Zetas sitting around. They could just apply to everyone without really having to think about it. If you're doing this, you're probably really short and you're wondering, okay, what is the bare minimum I need to apply to at least get the team functional before I sink more into it? And the bare minimum to get SLKR himself working is going to actually be a Zeta on Hux, as well as the leadership from SLKR and Stasis Strike. So the leadership it's uber important. One of the things that happens is that while they have advantage, they cannot be crit. One of the whole reasons why Gas actually used to be able to counter SLKR before they buffed SLKR is because he could consistently crit their team, increase their cooldowns, and keep them from doing a bunch of the stuff that they want to do. The other reason was actually because he could also increase the cooldowns of Kylo, and that was important because then Kylo couldn't just 2-turn stun Gas and completely stop him. So that's really why these two are kind of in the very first spot. Being able to stun a target irresistibly that they can't dispel for 2 turns in a row is of great value, and really a lot of Kylo's other Zetas are building blocks on top of that. If you look at Brutal Assault, it is going to deal additional damage when the enemy is stunned. Well, if the enemy was never stunned in the first place, it's not that great. Furious Onslaught is going to double the Siphon Mastery amount if the target was stunned. Again, you need to have the stun ability. This is the essential building blocks of SLKR that needs to happen before you go on to the other ones. You need to have the stun, and you need to have the leadership. The third most important Zeta for the SLKR team is Hux's, and I can't stress this enough. If you don't have this for 2 reasons, it's really good. All the first order allies will start with advantage for 2 turns at the start of each counter. The reason why this is important is because when we go back to Supreme Leader Kylo Ren's lead, he gives bonuses to all of his members depending on their faction when they start with advantage. This will make all of your tanks taunt, so you don't need the unique Zeta on your crew. He will just automatically taunt because he has advantage and this leadership, as well as first order Stormtrooper, and really whatever tank that ends up taunting or ends up getting advantage will also be able to do that. Attackers gain critical damage up, and then healers gain some fun stuff. Oh, supports also do gain 20% turn meter, which makes it very difficult to be able to get in front of Hux in the very beginning of the battle. And the reason why this ends up being more important is because this also stops turn meter. If all allies are first order at the start of the battle, enemies can't gain bonus turn meter while General Hux has advantage. If you don't have this, someone can walk in with troopers. Your SLKR will probably stun him off getting, because that's how his targeting priority works. And then your troopers can just completely run the first order team because they have nothing that stops out assisted turns or turn meter without the Zeta, and they can just run you. So you leave the team vulnerable, not just to the trooper counter, but to several different counters that revolve around turn meter by not having the Zeta. So it is top tier. What you do not want to do is apply all 6 Zetas to SLKR before you apply this one, because this one is so much more important, assuming you are going to be using him in the SLKR lineup in any facet. And really, even your secondary first order team is also going to rely on that quite a bit, just because turn meter is such an important mechanic for a variety of characters. So let's say you do those 3. Now you do want to go back to SLKR pretty much immediately, and his basic is very nice. You're going to get some additional damage, an additional hit, which will help you build ult charge, and on top of that, more advantage. The Furious Onslaught, getting double the mastery is important for a lot of counters to work. If he can't stack up very high, he won't be able to kill those high targets like Lord Vader. And the Galactic Legend Unique is just important so he doesn't get killed early on. This will give him a lot more health and protection per relic amplifier, as well as damage decreased by 30%. So do the first 2 on SLKR, do Hux's, go back to our good friend SLKR, finish the 3. And really the one that you want to leave off for a long amount of time, we'll get to this later, is press the advantage, because essentially all it does is make him immune to taunt effects. And while taunt effects could be detrimental to SLKR, there just aren't really that many out there that would force a taunt on him. And really the only 2 that there are is Darth Revan's Death Mark, which a lot of people aren't even using Darth Revan lead anymore with Malgus around, as well as Jedi Knight Revan. And the whole Jedi Knight Revan actually is a very good counter to SLKR, but the whole reason it works is because Revan is able to isolate each member of the First Order faction and kill them off one by one until it's just SLKR, and then use the ability to block them and rip them apart. Going right after SLKR is not ideal in that counter. You allow Hux and Lobster and crew to kind of wreak havoc by doing what they want to do, cleansing, passing more turns to SLKR, also dispelling whatever he had, as well as crew getting a 2-turn stun on one of your characters that you really probably didn't want to happen in the first place. So that's the one that we're going to be able to leave off for quite a bit of time. Next off, you're going to want all 3 of these Zetas if you use them. If you're not going to use them with the SLKR comp, just skip them entirely. Well, maybe don't skip them entirely, but don't do them for the focus of SLKR. One of the reasons it's so important to have the Zeta on, for example, Old Daka, is because if you're using her and the SLKR comp, every single time Zombie dies, she's going to gain turn meter, just because that's how her kit works. When her teammates die, she gets turn meter. And when she gets that turn meter, because of SLKR's lead, or actually is unique, she's going to lose max health. Whenever anyone on the First Order team gains turn meter, they lose max health. This is one of the ways he was balanced. If you don't have this Zeta to counteract that for Old Daka, your Daka will become very flimsy very quickly, and you'll be in for a really rough time. Wat Tambor's is just really nice because he gets to go right out of the gate. You get to apply the tech, so it doesn't matter really how quickly Lord Vader goes and kills everyone, because the tech is immediately out there. You don't have to worry about anything going wrong. And then Armors is actually a counter. Actually, not this one. It allows the 3rd stack to have 100% counter chance, which is one of the reasons why SLKR can beat JMK, because the counters don't just do damage, they charge SLKR's ult, and that is also important to be able to take down those higher targets. So after you focus on your SLKR Zetas and your Hux Zeta, if you use them, great. If you don't, skip. Next up, the 2 Zetas that are really important, and really the Zetas themselves are not that important, but if you are going to do the Phasma Omicron, or you're going to do the First Order TIE Pilot Omicron, you have to apply the Zeta first. So the conversation about the Zeta really isn't even that important. It's that if you want to be able to get all this great TW stuff going on, you have to pass through this first. So this is really going about your second team. Apparently I need to finish someone's mods. But it's the same idea for First Order TIE Pilot. If you're going to use him to make a good second First Order team, you need to make sure you have the Zeta applied first, because if you can't apply the Omicron, and the Omicron does have quite a bit of fun stuff in it. So they do fall to kind of, I guess, 4th priority here on the list after your SLKR team is essentially fully functional. Go ahead and decide if you want to make a really good second team in GAC or TW. And then after you do that, these are the nice but more or less luxury Zetas. I actually like them all. I have all of them applied. I really don't regret them. They were both good at the time they were applied, and they're still decent now. Crew, he gets to pre-taunt at the very beginning of the battle with his unique Zeta. I believe that's this one. And that's nice, but ultimately, if you're doing everything correctly with SLKR and Hux in the front lines, and you're using him in that comp, he'll pre-taunt anyway, so it's not that big of a deal. His leadership is arguably not even needed. You can use it. There are actually some situations where I think it's better than Hux's lead, but Hux's lead is good enough for most things, and it does not require a Zeta. Or if you're using him with SLKR, then it really doesn't matter that much to begin with. Our good friend, First Order Stormtrooper, I actually really like his Zeta, but most of the time it just doesn't matter. He gets 50% chance, it's 50% chance to call a random ally to assist. It is really fun when that ally is Supreme Leader Kylo Ren. It's actually very funny when this little stormtrooper here calls in Galactic Legend. Kylo Ren's, this actually used to be the best Zeta in the game like 7 years ago, which is, I guess, kind of explains everything. He recovers protection equal to the damage dealt. Really not that game breaking, but it's kind of nice. And then for Sith Troopers as well, he gets a free turn whenever anyone dies and gets to blast people with his AoE. Overall, it's good, but most counters aren't made or broken on. It's just a nice add-on. I guess you could probably put that one maybe a little bit higher on the tier list. And then last and pretty much least for Zeta prioritization is going to be Supreme Leader Kylo Ren's taunt effect. We already addressed this one in the very beginning. It just doesn't really do that much. The amount of counters that SLKR has against him on defense, they're few and far between, and the ones that do exist don't really have a way to put a taunt effect on it, except for Jedi Revan, and we already went over the fact that that's just not how you take down the SLKR team. If you're trying to go after the big guy at the very beginning, you kill all the really weak allies by containing them and stunning them and ability to block him, then you take down SLKR. So that one ends up being pretty much the last priority. So that is going to be it for today. We will probably do a mod video for them in the near future as well, but in this video, we're able to cover all the add-ons, all the team comps, Zetas, as well as Omicrons. So thank you guys for watching, and as always, stay awesome.